We want to thank Andrew Warren, his office, his executive team, the prosecutors who all met on multiple occasions to make the determination of charging the person responsible for the death of Bradley Hewlett. We also know that there was an investigation as it relates to an officer who owned the home as well as the firearm that took the life of Bradley. We were informed today that that officer currently is not going to be charged. While we understand the state attorney's office was and is confined with the law, obviously we wouldn't be here today if that gun was securely stored and that gun was in a safe or that gun wasn't in an area where kids could access it. Now, we know that the state was confined with how the law reads in this particular situation. And the Safe Storage Act it's a law that puts prosecutors, puts officials in a position where it makes it very hard to charge people as the law stands today. And despite looking at every avenue they could, despite the fact that there may have been evidence that this firearm may not have been secured the way appropriately, the law at this point in time prohibited the officer in this particular case with being charged. That doesn't go to say that he wasn't negligent in how he stored that firearm. It doesn't go to say that it was appropriate the way he stored the firearm. We understand, and the family understands, that law enforcement, as well as the state attorney's office, did everything they could do to seek a way, if it was possible, to charge this individual in this case. However, based on the confines of the law, they were unable to do so. Again, we want to thank law enforcement. We want to thank the state attorney's office. More importantly, we want to thank the Fishhawk community, the community in Tampa Bay area, for the tremendous amount of support that you've given the Hewlett family in such a horrible, trying time. This community has come together and rallied around the Hewletts. They've shown strength, and you've helped the Hewletts be strong in this. And the Hewlett family is a strong family. Although we see this as moving towards closure, moving towards a resolution, getting justice for Bradley, nothing can take back the loss his family suffered. And we'd ask that, obviously the family would ask that, you keep them in your prayers and your thoughts, and that you continue to support them the way you have. Brad wants to make a statement.
I just want to reiterate the Fishhawk community and everyone that's part of our social media presence as we've started this move towards getting justice for our son Bradley. We appreciate it more than you know, whether it's the meals, the hugs, the tears, the handshakes, or whatever. It's really opened our eyes to how fortunate we are to live where we do and amongst the people that we do. So thank you again.
Let me ask you, Mr. Hewlett, how are you doing? How is the family doing, given what we've learned today and what the state of affairs is?
We haven't really been doing all that well for 77 days, so today's not much different. There's a path now, I think, to closure for us, and that helps. So I'm happy in that sense, if that's maybe not the appropriate term, but I'm pleased. But we struggle. We're a tight family. We're a big family. We've had a very difficult time with this. Bradley was the glue for our family. He was very, very important to us and to his siblings. So that's kind of where we're at. We hope that the sun's going to come out tomorrow and it's a better day.
Does this feel like justice?
It does. It does. I'm pleased with the charging decision on the young man that killed Bradley. But it could have gone farther for us either way. But at this point, we're pleased.
You told me we met on what would have been Bradley's 16th birthday with regards to the safe storage law. You thought it was adequately written. Sheriff Chronister has basically put out a strong statement saying that might possibly needs to be changed after the decision today to see no charges at this point against that police officer who left that gun in a locked bedroom that the boys were able to get a hold of. Do you see your family fighting for changes to the state safe storage law?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be the next big thing that we do in Bradley's honor, is to try and get that law tightened up and made fair. This should never happen. And if that weapon is truly secure, like how I secure my weapon in my home, this doesn't happen. December 14th comes and Bradley plays basketball. obviously we're sitting here for a different reason. That's because somebody didn't secure their firearm properly, maybe legally, but not properly.
Tonight will be 11 weeks since this tragedy impacted your family and your community. One thing your wife told us in the home, the Friday nights just haven't felt the same. How do you feel to get this news on what's going to be a Friday heading into this 11th week since this accident?
Well, I'm hopeful that if the boys are watching that they come over tonight and hang out with us. My wife's out of town for a cheer competition for my daughter Elena, so she won't be there. It's odd, 11 straight Fridays with no one there, or at least not the same group of young men that were visiting all the time, but you know, it's kind of the new normal, and we're adjusting to that on a weekly basis.
Have you been in contact at all with the shooter's family in any capacity since this incident?
Yeah, my wife spoke with the shooter and his father probably within 3 or 4 days of Bradley being killed. They were at the funeral service. We let them sit with our family in the reserve seating. So we had that conversation. It was only when, I think that broke down when we were made aware that not only had they gotten counsel, but they weren't cooperating in any fashion. And that changed our lives dramatically. It impacted our daughter Ava. It really sent us into a tailspin, to be very frank, and we haven't had any contact since then.
Question for you, Anthony.
Yeah.
In the decision from the state attorney, he seemed to focus in on the word likely in the safe storage law. And having spoken to counsel for the Tampa police officer, he seemed to say he's not going to be charged because of that likelihood.
Yeah.
Is that maybe one of the words, one of the tweaks that needs to be looked at in terms of making this a tougher safe storage law here in our state?
Without a doubt, and I would actually call on the legislature to do something, because this is what needs to happen to make people aware that you can't just leave your firearm sitting around on a countertop. And the way the law is written now, it says likely or reasonably secured. That's not enough. There needs to be provisions put in the law or taken out of the current law that don't allow this loophole. Because what's likely? You know, if you lock your door and that you say don't come in my room, and the person comes in the room, well, he's a good kid, he's likely not to get in. Well, he got in. And that creates a situation where under the law as it stands, it allows for defenses. It allows to say, hey, likely he wasn't going to come in, or it was reasonable for me, based on my knowledge of my child and based on where the door was locked, reasonable for me to believe that no one was going to get in. And that's the problem the state had in this case, and that's the problem a lot of prosecutors in this particular state have. In prosecuting cases where there may be a violation of the Safe Storage Act because of that provision where it says likely or reasonably safe. Now, there have been attempts in our legislature to remove that last line of the statute completely and basically require one of two things. It have a trigger lock or would firearm be placed in a safe. Removing that third prong, that third provision, reasonably safe, and then the fallback likely for someone to receive the firearm, removing those provisions would make this law stronger, would make this law more effective in prosecuting cases like this where someone is innocently killed by a firearm that was left unattended in the house.
And Mr. Hill, you talked about, you're a gun owner yourself, you kind of touched on this. You told us, if children come to your home, they don't have to worry. What do you want to say to gun owners in our community, anyone watching this? What is your message to them to hopefully prevent this type of tragedy from happening to another family?
Well, I think the irony is that probably 99.9% of gun owners know the answer. Use trigger locks. Secure safely in a safe that only you have the combination to. That's what I do. And it's unfortunate that didn't happen in this case, because we have a completely different outcome if something that simple is followed and that reasonable, frankly.
What do you miss the most about your son?
Wow. Everything.
Look, no one could ever understand the loss that this family suffered. As Brad said, Bradley was everything his family. He was the glue of the family. To lose a son who had everything going for him, you can't imagine the loss the family suffered.
Are you considering a potential civil suit against the officer?
There's other attorneys handling those matters. It's, not for us and not for this day. Today we want to focus on Bradley, just for Bradley, and right now that's where we see this.
Anthony, do you know if the young man is being charged as an adult at this time? Do you know that?
We do not know if that decision has yet been made. We understand that that is in consideration, that the state attorney's office has made a decision to charge him manslaughter. That manslaughter charge is a first-degree felony, punishable by up to 30 years in the Florida State Prison if he's charged as an adult. There are less options that are available if he's charged as a juvenile. The state attorney's office is obviously considering all those options on what route to go, and we've noted that they've decided to charge, make an arrest. Now, how he is actually prosecuted, that's ultimately up to the state attorney's office, and they're going to be analyzing which route to go in that.
For 11 weeks, I kind of see the whole thing unfold. There were school board meetings, people at school boards screaming justice for Bradley. There were people at school scared to go to school. They were saying that he was walking around. How does it feel right now that you sit here 11 weeks after all that, people at the school board, people at school talking about, this is not right, and here we are, and he's getting charged today?
It's a good feeling. We fought extremely hard. I think I said the last time we did an interview that if it was the very last thing we do on this earth, it would be to find justice for Bradley, and I think today we did that. And so it's very rewarding for the struggles that we've gone through for 77 days to have an outcome that's favorable for our family for a change.
You said your wife is out of town.
Mhm.
You called to share the news with her. What was that moment like?
Actually, I was texting with her while she was flying. She was flying out to Dallas while we were with the state attorney. She and I have, we don't align 100% on what we think should happen and who should be charged and all of those things, but she's pleased that the shooter was charged, kind of the same way I am. She finds it unfortunate that the law is so vague that someone that was negligent is not going to face charges, but that's the reality of the way the law is written, and that's okay.
And I got to ask this question. No one's going to ask it, but now he's charged. What do you want to say to that 15-year-old young man right now? If you could say anything to him.
Well, first, why? 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 What would possess you to think that picking up a weapon and playing with it or brandishing it in any way made sense? Assuming that none of this is intentional and it was just a mistake. And I would hope that there's a path for him forward, that he can be better, that maybe there's a way that he can honor my son. I don't know what that would look like, but that would be my hope. This isn't about vengeance for me, but it is about justice, and we got that today.
Have you forgiven him?
Forgiven him? I haven't really thought about it. I haven't had, it's interesting you ask that, because for 77 days we weren't allowed to function. Okay, we've been held in this purgatory by these other families that have been unwilling to talk. So I haven't even really, to be very honest, given any thought to forgiveness at this point. I think that's probably the next thing that will cross my mind.
What about a just punishment?
I haven't really thought about that. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable answering that today.
Well, what we learned today, was obviously this family has been essentially in the dark asking for answers for the last 77 days. And we got a lot of those answers today, and what we did learn from the state is that this wasn't an accidental trigger pull. They have reason to believe that the firearm was pointed in Bradley's direction, and that trigger was intentionally pulled. That is different. That's an element that adds to, when you ask our feelings on it, and when you learn more about what's happened and what went on in that house. That was troubling to us, hearing that today.
It was tough.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
No,
you.
of course.
Shot of your bracelet. Everybody might want that.
What does the bracelet say?
Be like Bradley. Kindness matters.
Would you like to share, Brad, anything about the foundation that's been created and one good thing that you try to get coming up?
Yeah, the folks that I play poker with, Roger, we started a foundation called the bh3fund.org, and it's already supporting fully scholarshiping 12 young athletes, basketball players in an AU program, and we're partial scholarshiping about 15 at this point. Our goal is to roll that out through Tampa so that more kids that maybe don't have the means to participate, like my son did, can enjoy and participate in whatever athletic aspirations they have. So we're very young. We're only a couple of months old, but we're having a benefit May 9th, a poker tournament in his honor, and we'll probably do many other events here over the next years.
And the team has started practicing?
The team started, we started last Sunday practicing, and we'll continue every Sunday. Our first tournament, I think, is at Wide World of Sports on March 27th. And that's Bradley's legacy team. That's the team he would have been on this year. There are 3 teams in the organization, but his legacy team will begin play that week.
No questions?
Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you.